There's this phrase that I keep coming back to very often. What got you here won't get you there. It applies to fitness, it applies to career. If you're running a business, it applies to your business, and it also applies to every other aspect of your life. And I'll use a couple of examples to try and make it make sense to you, because I'm sure when I give you these examples, something's going to click, right? So I want you to think of a non competitive goal first. Think of losing weight. When you're losing weight, you're usually doing it for yourself. You're not comparing your progress to anyone else's, or you might be comparing your progress in your head. But when you're losing weight, it's usually a personal goal. It's not a race of sorts, it's not like a competitive sport. When you're trying to lose weight, let's say you're obese, let's say you're 100 and something kgs, right? Even if you fix a few habits at that point, like not eating outside, consuming less alcohol, maybe going for a couple of walks in a day, or something very basic, because of the basic habits that you've been following, you've lost a lot of weight. Your blood reports are better, you're not obese anymore. But truth be told, you're also not at the peak of your potential. You're not muscular. You can't do 50 push-ups. You can't do 10 pull-ups. You can't run 10 kilometers even. You don't have abs. You don't have a muscular physique. You're better than where you were, but you're nowhere close to what you could be. But the amount of effort that it took you to get from point A to point B, which is where you're at right now, is simply not enough to get you to point C. If you want a muscular physique and you want to get abs and you want to be able to run a half marathon or you want to be able to do 20 pull ups or whatever, you can't just go for a couple of walks in a day. You can't just avoid fried food and call it a day. You're going to have to train regularly and train with intent. You're going to have to make sure you're getting protein in each meal. You're going to have to make sure that you're sleeping well. The amount of effort and the amount of input is going to increase to see any sort of improvement in the amount of output that you're getting. In very simple words, what made you lose the first 5 kgs is not going to help you lose the last 5 kgs. Now, let's take the example of a competitive goal. Let's say you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, right, in your organization. Maybe when you're a fresher, when you're like really new in the system, you're still going to get a raise, you'll get a promotion after a couple of years and everything. You'll go from an associate to a senior maybe. And it's not going to take all that much effort, right? You show up to work, you're consistent, you do everything that you're asked of, and there you go. Here's your first level promotion, right? But if let's say you're in the higher level of management, your competition is cutthroat. Showing up is simply not enough because everyone is showing up. What are you doing differently? And there's simply not too many opportunities available while the competition is cutthroat. You're basically not competing with juniors anymore who are just learning the ropes. You're competing with absolute killers because they've been doing everything that you've been doing too, except they're willing to do more, which is why you're going to have to do more if you want that promotion. In both of these situations, the competitive goal of getting a promotion and also the non competitive goal of losing body fat, if you operate at the same input level like you did when you started the journey, no shit, you're going to stagnate at some point. At some point, your goals are going to require more input because what got you here will not get you to the next level. Progress requires constant reinvention. Every stage of progress, be it in your business, be it in your career, your fitness, any other goal that you have, every level is going to require a version of you that simply didn't exist some time ago. Because the truth is, the mindset that helped you start will not help you scale. The habits that got you fit won't get you ripped. And the skills that got you a job will not give you financial freedom. At every level, the game changes, and so should you. And here's a perspective that helped me. Treat your life like a video game, not in an obsessive manner where you're basically checking your stats every day. But I want you to think of the concept itself. At level one, you fight basic enemies. You fight those sidekick villains, right? Like those, think of God of War. I don't know if any of you have played it, I'm sure a lot of you have. The first God of War ever. It started with you on a ship and you're fighting like those undead zombie like minions. And you know for a fact that was not a hard battle. Nobody has ever lost to any of those fuckers. So you start the game, your weapons are fuck all, you have no special combos, you don't have any there's nothing special to your character apart from like the basal level of abilities, but there's also nothing special about the challenges, so you still end up growing and you still end up progressing. The learning curve is shallow and you rack up the wins pretty quick. But as you level up, the bosses get bigger, the challenges get tougher, and there's less scope for mistakes. And just like how you can't beat a level 10 boss with level 2 skills, you too, at every part of the journey, are going to have to reinvent yourself, or at the very least, make yourself better. And real life is also basically the same. No matter what your goal, no matter what the challenge is, at every level it's going to demand a little more of you. And a lot of people get stuck in this almost entitled and borderline egotistical loop of, I know I'm doing everything right, but I'm not seeing the results, so maybe this isn't for me. Like, motherfucker, you're already reaping the benefits of all the input that you're putting in. If you're going to work every day, you get to keep your job. That doesn't entitle you to a promotion or a raise. Similarly, if you've cut out all the fried food and you're not eating out very frequently, you've already lost your beer belly. But that doesn't entitle you to abs because you've never done a single crunch in your life, you've never lifted a single weight beyond a pillow. So, how do you move forward here on out? Once you acknowledge that, okay, at every level, more is going to be demanded out of me, no matter what the goal or no matter what the challenge. What headspace do you adopt to try and make progress here? Here are 4 rules. Number 1, expect the rules to change. Most of us don't like to acknowledge this, but the world that we live in is competitive. Rules change, standards are raised, the bar is raised. Sometimes it takes more to do something, sometimes it takes less. When progress slows or challenges grow, or if, let's say, your challenges or goals, they start demanding more out of you than they ever have, or even if your environment or circumstances change and now things have objectively become harder because of developments in technology, increase in competition, your market's getting saturated, or let's say there's economic changes, I understand. But at the same time, if you acknowledge that this is how the world has always worked and the rules just constantly keep changing on a long enough timeline, you'll have a much better time making peace with it and planning your move forward. Because if you stop looking at it from like a lens of, man, like this shit happened to me, and you sort of look at it from a broader lens of, okay, this has always happened across multiple industries, there has never been a point in time where innovation and change in environments has not affected human growth and individual lives also, you're going to have a better time making peace with it. So expect rules to change. Sometimes the same challenges and goals that wouldn't have demanded so much out of you 10 years ago will probably demand more out of you 10 years from now. And at the same time, as you keep making progress, rules are bound to change just because you're playing at a different table. Number 2, keep upgrading your inputs. This one's pretty simple. If you want better, bigger, faster, grander outcomes, you're going to have to put in more inputs. It's as simple as it gets. If I want to grow this YouTube channel, for example, which I really do, um, I can't just record once every 10 days and expect something to happen. Today, I'm going to record 3 videos as opposed to recording 3 videos in an entire month. So if your input increases, your output is bound to increase. So if, let's say, I wanted to get my first 500 subs, which I already have gotten, thank you so much. If I want to get it to like 10,000, I'm going to have to pour in a little more effort and more consistently at that. Number 3 is to treat setbacks as signals. In most cases, if something isn't working, and this has happened with me even with respect to my business also, if something has worked for you in the past but it's not working for you today, I want you to take it as a signal that either you've leveled up to a point where that sort of input is just simply not enough, or circumstances have changed, which is why this goal requires more out of you. So let's say in the online space, right? Maybe like 5 years ago, if you googled, or if you looked up a video on how to grow on Instagram or any other channel, you would see that the biggest tip is just to grow, is just to post consistently. But the market is so much more competitive now that even if you're posting like 10 times a day, but you're offering absolute dog shit and there's nothing unique about you, you're still not going to grow. Because there's now, instead of like maybe 100 people in a certain space being consistent, there's 100,000 people who are consistent. So now your consistency means very little because it has to also be accompanied by quality and value, right? Simply because the competition has increased. So if something was working for you and it's not working anymore, I want you to take it as a signal that you have to change something. Lastly, build adaptability. This is going to tie into the previous point, so I'm not going to explain it. But what I need you to remember is that you're supposed to be adaptable and not just consistent. Because if you're consistently doing something that isn't working, then you're just slamming your head against the wall, hoping to build a doorway or whatever. In a nutshell, every level, in some sense, is supposed to challenge you a little more and it's supposed to ask a little more out of you. And I know that sounds like a flaw in the system, but it's not. It is the system, whether it's fair or not. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching so far into the video. And if it helped you, if you like the perspective, I would appreciate you sharing this with a friend. Because while we do have a great community on Instagram, It's word of mouth that will make this channel grow. And so far, we've almost hit 700 subscribers as of now while I record this video. So yeah, thank you so much for your support. I truly appreciate it. And if you like this one too, I'll see you in the next.